are the concern of anthropology and its biological foundations are examined by neuroscience. Miller included the disciplines involved in the formation of cognitive science in a hexagon. You can see at the picture. This hexagon was compiled in 1978, and today the relationships have certainly become wider and more complex. Each of these disciplines has its own history and its own path in the study of the mind until September 11th, 1956, the second day of the Information Theory Symposium that was being held at MIT. The events that happened in this symposium gradually brought the different sciences together to study mind. But when we talk about cognitive science, we should refer to cognitive revolutions too. In cognitive sciences and related sciences, we have faced two epistemological revolutions in the contemporary era. These two developments are known as first and second generation of cognitive science, actually. The common thread of both revolutions is the protest against the philosophical foundation of the previous era about the nature of cognition and the relationship between language and mind. If we study the philosophical roots of cognitive science, it should be said that the first generation of cognitive science came into being based on the foundations and assumptions of Anglo-American philosophy and non-embodied theories. In the 19, I think in the 1950s, Hilary Putnam stated that the mind can be studied based on the operations it performs, but these mental operations are independent of the brain and the body. This mental operation can be modeled in the same way as it is done in computers by using visual symbols. Meaningless visual symbols. In psychology, mind would be considered as an information processing, and this processing would be done with the help of visual signs. The first cognitive revolution, which focused on the principles of analytical philosophy, formal logic, and artificial intelligence, actually became a machine revolution. But the second revolution protested against this machine's view of cognition that ignored the bodily and cultural identity of human. George Lakoff was the pioneer of the second generation of cognitive science. Although he was raised in the Chomskyan School of Linguistics, he expressed concerns about, concerns about the inefficiency of transformational grammar or linguistics. In collaboration with a philosopher named Mark Johnson, Lakoff wrote two very influential books with the titles Metaphor Believed By and Philosophy of the Flesh, the Embodied Mind and its Challenge to Western Thought. In their book, Philosophy of the Flesh, actually Lakoff and Johnson state that humans are neural creatures and our brains get their inputs from our bodies. The authors of the book answered the question, who are we humans, pointing to three general principles. The human mind is inherently actually embodied. Human thoughts are mostly unconscious, and abstract concepts are mainly metaphorical. Unlike the first cognitive revolution, which considered the body and the brain as two separate things and considered cognition as an abstract phenomenon, in the second cognitive revolution, based on the approach that cognitive linguistics brought to cognitive science, all the concepts that humans learn have an empirical basis and form based on actually embodied experiences. As you can see, in the second generation of cognitive science, cognition was no longer considered as an abstract phenomenon, and the role of embodied experience in the formation of cognition was emphasized. But still, culture has not found its place as it should, and it is on the fringe of more fundamental cognitive studies and the study of cognitive processes. Let me now talk a little about cognitive processes and that the role of culture is neglected in the study of cognition and cognitive processes. Cognitive processes are the cornerstone or building blocks of our mental capabilities, influencing how we perceive, how we think, how we remember, and live. These processes are fundamental to our interaction with the world and our understanding of it. The most important ones are attention, memory, language, thinking, reasoning, problem solving, executive functions, and etc. You know, the findings of cognitive scientists about each of these concepts have been surprising, especially after using advanced brain imaging technologies. They believe that what they have found is universal and common to all humans, actually, all healthy humans. But their findings have a big gap. It's the lack of attention to culture. To better understand what I mean, consider this example. Cognitive scientists have well understood the mechanisms of attention and have provided very useful categories of it. For example, they talk about selective attention, flexible attention, distributed attention, and lots of kind of other attention too. But the researchers and the books have been almost silent on the effects of culture on attention. This may seem strange to you too, but generally speaking, when we look at the big picture, actually, the society and culture in which a person grew up determines what things are important to him to pay attention to and what to ignore. For example, in some societies, people pay a lot of attention to political issues, while in other societies, people pay little attention to these kind of issues. What makes this happen? According to the opinion of universalists, the structure and mechanisms of attention is the same among all the healthy people. Here, the culture is the determining factor. Or another interesting example I came across recently was about the relationship between flashbulb memory as a cognitive component and collectivist culture as a cultural dimension or factor. The collectivist, the finding is that the collectivist cultures tend to have lower rates of flashbulb memories. But what is flashbulb memories? You know, a flashbulb memory is a vivid memory about an emotionally significant event, usually historic or other notable events. People often experience these memories in photographic details and can recall all of its aspects, like what they were doing when the event occurred or how they learned about what happened. For example, like where you were when you found out you got accepted or declined from your dream college. I'm sure that all of you can remember that day with all of its detail. It's a kind of flashback memory that is linked to our emotion, and because of that, it is so strong. And from the other hand, a collectivist culture is one that's based on valuing the needs of a group or a community over the individual. Kinship, family, and a community are extremely important. People tend to work together to create harmony, and group cohesion is so important for them. Okay, but studies have shown that flashbulb memory in collectivist cultures is formed in people's memory in a different way than in individualistic culture. In fact, this type of memory is less common among them. Collectivistic cultures tend to have lower rates of flashbulb memories. I don't have enough time to talk about this study in details. If you are interested to know about more about it, you can see Kolkovsky et al. And read about it. You know, memory is a very, very important cognitive component. Cognitive scientists state that it has a somehow universal structure among people, and like attention, they give different kinds of memory. For example, working memory, long-term memory, short-term memory, I don't know, semantic memory, episodic memory, and lots of other kind of memory. But And one of them is actually flashbulb memory. But here, what makes it work so differently in two different culture? If culture is not the determining factor in formation of this type of memory, then what has had such an effect? These questions, actually researched and similar cases which are increasing day by day, have made the researchers gradually pay more attention to cognitive social or cognitive cultural sciences and the role of culture in the formation of cognition. That is a very, very important issue. Let me leave the rest of the discussion on the topic of culture and cognition to Dr. Ardebili, who is expert in this era and has studied a lot and did lots of research in this era. I'm so thankful for your attention and your time.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Shafiei. Your speech was very useful and very up to date, uh, especially for me. Include a lots of information, very suitable information about cognitive sciences. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Uh,
too.
uh, we have some questions. Among the questions I would like to ask Dr. Shafiei a question. Dr. Shafiei, does cognitive sciences accept Darwin's theory of evolution uh, or not? There are some theorists who disagree with Darwin's theory. If your answer is positive, what are the consequences of accepting Darwin's theory in anthropology, especially if we talk in atmosphere of traditional or religious anthropology or metaphysical anthropology? Please answer to this question.
I think this question actually is included in the realm of anthropology because anthropological studies actually when share their findings to cognitive science, part of them work on actually the part Darwinism's idea, and I think Dr. Ardebili could answer these questions more better than me because it's not my profession actually about anthropology. I'm so sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Shafiei. Uh, because we don't have enough time, I request Dr. Ardebili to start her speech. Please, Dr.
Okay, in the name of God. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this important topic. And again, I am truly thankful of Mr. Gholami and their colleagues and his colleagues to arrange such a fruitful discussions. And I appreciate Dr. Shafi for such a brief and useful introduction to cognitive anthropology and cognitive science as a whole. Now let us please share my slides if possible. I am going to speak about what is cognitive anthropology, what is its scope, its objectives, and as a new field of studies. Cognitive anthropology addresses the way in which people conceive and think about events and objects in the world. And it is very important for cognitive anthropologists to explain how our minds effects on our culture, and on the other hand, how our culture influences on our minds and cognitive capability. It is one of the main concerns of cognitive anthropologists. On the other hand, how culture is represented in our mind and guides our behaviors or actions, our decision makings and values, and etc. So, opposite to cognitive psychology, which is the study of process of thought in individuals in observed in experimental setting, cognitive anthropology is a study of the content of thought against process of. They don't. Do you hear me? They don't uh, mind about the process of mind. They are really engaged with the content of thought or knowledge in communities, not in individuals, and observing natural settings, I mean, in everyday life. Mr. Gholami, I am clear? Or my voice is clear?
Yes, your
Is my
voice
voice clear? Yes, thank you.
clear, completely
Thank you.
clear, but no use VPN, please.
No. There is no VPN here.
Yes.
Uh, okay. Uh, um, Please slide to Ms. Shafiei. Uh, okay, so cognitive anthropologists are interested in how people in different cultures and in different societies with different histories, different religions, different rituals, and different geography are different in categorization of objects. One of the most important questions among cognitive anthropologists is that why people in different culture organize actually yes organize their surrounding and their environment diversely. So, folk taxonomies is among the interesting fields of study for cognitive anthropologists. It should note here that the main root of cognitive anthropology is cultural relativism. So they are concerned with the interaction of language and thought. For example, they want to know how metaphors, especially conceptual metaphors, or a structure of language are the reflection of a speaker's way of thinking about words and how our mental schemas are reflected in our language. Would you please be careful that cognitive anthropologists believe that both our language and our cultures and our thoughts, sorry, our cultures and our language and our thoughts are has cultural flavors, have culturally colorful. And last but not the least is the cultural models, which is which cognitive anthropologists are seriously concerned with it. The main question that cultural models studies could answer is that why people behave, think, act, evaluate, judge in, in a specific way in different cultures. Cultural models are cultural maps, which according to these maps and to these models, people arrange their behaviors in their everyday lives. What is noteworthy point here cognitive models is that people in a society have shared cultural models with each other. And I will continue my discussion about cultural models. Please, next slides, yes. Because uh, this theory, I mean, cultural model theory, is among the most important U-turn in understanding culture. I mean that cultural model theory help to cognitive anthropologists to look at culture in another way, which is different from symbolic anthropologies or traditional anthropology. One of the most as I told before, noteworthy development in cognitive anthropology is the adaptation of CMT or cultural model theory for investigating culture. Main assumption of CMT is regarding the concept of culture as a mental knowledge. It means culture is inside the heads of individuals, not outside there, which is shared by the member of a community. Cognitive anthropologists believe that this mental knowledge is organized into a number of mental models that are called cultural models. So, main assumption of CMT is a mental knowledge which is shared by the members of community. Second assumption of CMT is that culture is not a whole, opposite to traditional anthropology or symbolic anthropology or structuralist anthropologies, which is believed that culture is a whole. Cognitive anthropologists believe that, please, next slide. It means we can dissect culture into a small units. Most anthropologists agree with the opinion in general that the existence of fixed units, I mean small units, small meaningful units, such as atoms, genes, cells, um, phonemes for linguistics, make these science have a wonderful development. I mean that if we have a marvelous development in biology, in physics, in genetics, because they discovered their minimal or fundamental units. Then cognitive anthropology come to this issue that if we as anthropologists want to have a scientific stand in this era, should find our, I mean, minimal unit or fundamental unit of culture. So anthropologists attempt to discover the main component of culture. Please, next uh, slide. They, for this reason, they borrow the categorization capability from their rich tradition, this rich traditional anthropology. And so they argue that if we want to study a given culture, and we should pay close attention to the categories existing in our subject matter. For example, if you want to know how do people in a given society think about family and what is their family cultural model, at the first step, you should study how they categorize the structure of family and what is the main categories in the family. For example, in some cultures, people believe that a family is composed of father, mother, children, grandfather, grandmother, and sometimes uncles and aunts, which we call them people with extended family structures. On the other hand, there are some people or some in some area people believe that family is composed of father and mother and one or two children, and some people categorize family into a man and his wife. So different categorization could make different structures and different concepts. The second component of culture in anthropology and cognitive anthropology paradigm is schema. Anthropologists borrow this concept, I mean, a schema, from cognitive psychologists and add a cultural prefix into it. So they coin cultural schema and argue that such a schema are among the main components of culture. For example, if you want to know how people in a community, again, think about, for example, family, you should find what the role schema of the family. For example, what is supposed a mother in a family, for example, in Iranian family or African family, and what is her responsibilities on the other hand, what are the emotion schema, for example, for father and etc. Then by studying cultural schema, you should go into the cultural thoughts and cultural behaviors of that people and the given society. And the last but not the least is metaphors or conceptual metaphors, which anthropologists borrow it from cognitive linguistics and add again a cultural prefix into it. They argue that cultural metaphors could give a guiding light to the researcher for studying culture. For example, in some culture, the central metaphor for mother of the family is mother as candle. A mother is understood and conceptualized by candle, like candle that burns and give light to environment or surrounding. A mother should bear hardship and be selfless or self-sacrificing, like a candle. As you see, these three main components of culture is among the most important components of a culture in cognitive anthropology. I give you some example, an example of cultural model researchers. Please, next slide. Metin, Rose, and Cox in 2006 investigate cultural model of nature in two populations in Wisconsin, US. They focused their attention on Native American and majority cultures, means fishermen and hunters. It was reported that there were some conflict between these two populations on using cultural resources, natural resources. The native believed that majority populations, I mean hunters and fishermen, uh, harm the nature. And on the other side, majority population didn't have such a view and disagree with them. Medin and his colleagues conducted a cultural model-based research and found that the root of this conflict is diverse because of diverse cultural model of nature among these people. Please, next slide. Majority culture, I mean hunters and fishermen, uh, believe that natural resources are for use and nature is separate phenomenon, separate entity from human being. Of course, they believe in having responsibility to take care of nature. On the other hand, Native American believe that they tend to talk, central metaphors of nature among them is Mother Earth. And they believe that they are part of a nature. So uh, they believe that they are the extension, of nature, or vice versa. Nature, they think about nature as an extension of human being, and they believe that they should care about nature as they part, a body organ or a part of their body. But majority didn't have such a point of view about nature and think about nature as a separate entity. So Medin and his colleague resulted that different concept of nature, conceptualization of nature, cultural model of nature, cause these conflicts among these two populations of an area. So it is an example of cultural model. As a concluding remark, in summary, I should told you that cognitive anthropology uh, consider culture as an inner entity, not an outsider or something outside of the mind. It is an inner and it plays in the mind of the people and in a society, and people share this uh, I think that models or cultural models or culture as a inner entity. Then we should regard culture as a mental knowledge, which people organize their behaviors, action, decision, and etc. based on this shared mental knowledge, which is shared among people in a society. Then they use central metaphors for culture. I emphasize that it is the U-turn of conceptualizing culture in a cognitive science. They believe that culture, they believe in the metaphor culture as an or cultural model as an iceberg. What you see is behaviors and actions, but the main problem, the main issues is cultural models, which is the deep and the most important part of the culture is cultural models. I want to summarize this part. I should say that culture is composed of several components, and if someone wants to study it, should concern with these components. I mean, with these cultural metaphors, linguistic structures, cultural schemas, cultural categorization, and etc. The last but not the least is that cognitive anthropology believe in cultural model as a guiding outline of our everyday life, and it is invisible and deep part of an iceberg. So, for understanding a culture, researchers should dive into this part of people's mind, and because the core of culture is placed there. Thank you for attention.
Dr. Ardebili, your speech was very good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Would you like to add some words about the question at Dr. Shafiei about Darwin's theory?
Yes, we should consider that one of the roots of cognitive anthropology and of course cognitive science which deal with studying mind is in Darwinism, and one of the main points is the evolution of mind. I mean that cognitive scientists, cognitive especially cognitive some cognitive psychologists believe in Darwinism presupposition about the development of mind.
Yes.
But as you know, it is about the mainstream of cognitive scientists. But there are some branches of cognitive science that they don't believe in evolutionary or in Darwinism.
Yes, but what's the consequences of accepting Darwin's theory in anthropology, especially when we talk in atmosphere of traditional anthropology or religious anthropology? You know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe this term create a lots of challenges for
Mm-hmm.
us when we talk about anthropology under the umbrella of traditional anthropology or religious anthropology.
Yeah.
Would you explain a little about this question?
Yes, there are some. Of course, if you have a religious point of view, it makes some dangerous points when you are in under the umbrella of Darwinism. But as you know, there are some scholars and some the cognitive anthropologists that don't believe in Darwinism. I think that it is we should not feel I think that dangerous about an idea that is being in a scientific field, but especially cognitive archaeologists. I think that presupposes Darwinism. But in anthropology, there are two branches. Some of them are very faithful about Darwinism, but some of them are not.
We have some question. Among the question, I can ask one question. Can cognitive science provide a proposal for social engineering? If your answer is positive, what will happen to individual freedom?
Individual. The questions say that how we can apply cognitive anthropology or cognitive science to social engineering.
Yes, social engineering or social cultural engineering. Of course, social famous in scientific term.
Yes.
Mr.
Cultural
engineering. Yes.
Yes.
If science provide a proposal for social engineering, if your answer is positive, what will happen to individual freedoms?
Individual freedoms. It is this question is among the most serious question and criticism that sometimes proposed to cognitive science and cognitive anthropologies. I think that cognitive science and its findings is like a knife. It is a question, when we have a knife, we can use it for curing people, and we can use it for killing people. I think that it should, like artificial intelligence. I think that this question is true about this field of study, field of research. But I think that we should not be worried about it. Cultural model, for example, as I told in my presentation today, is among the most important theory that could use for cultural engineering. You should know how people think about something. For example, think about family, think about marriage, think about divorce. That put these findings into programming society, into I think that politics, and make some good strategies for guiding people to do something or to don't do something. But sometimes, I told before, some people look at these kind of researchers as a threat, as a warning that if some governments, for example, sometimes governments put politics about marriage, I don't have any individual freedom if I want to, for example, do this decision. But I think that it is not an important point here. It is my idea. It is. I think that with this cognitive science as a knife, with this metaphor, I want to say that we can use it. If we can use this finding, cognitive science or cognitive anthropology's finding, in a true way.
Thank you. One of our audience has question. Please turn on your microphone and ask your question, please.
Okay, thanks for your great presentation. I have two questions. Two of the questions is about language. How do you see the relationship between language and the mind? Do you see the language as a windows to the mind, or as a tools for the mind, or how do you see this relationship? Is it bi-directional relationship? This is the first question. The second question is about whether all human languages share a common origin. Thanks.
Thank you. Your questions from Dr. Ardebili or Dr. Shafiei?
Both of them. I don't know.
Please,
Both
Dr.
of them.
You
Okay.
start.
About yes, about the relationship. It is again a common question when we talk about cognitive anthropology and its concern about the relationship between thought and language. Most of the people think that what is the relationship between language and cognition, or language and mind, or language and thought. As you told, Mr., in your question, I think that it is a bidirectional interaction. It is a dialectical interaction. I mean that language influenced on culture, influenced on our thoughts via the culture, and after that, culture will influence on or sorry, our thoughts influence on our languages, on our vocabularies, on our structure, linguistic structure. Then we should not put this discussion into the egg and hen. Which one is more important? Both of them are important. Both of them have a bidirectional relationship with each other. Language reinforces our thoughts, and our thoughts is reflected on your. When I think about some ideas, some concepts, you see that I coined a word for it. Then our thoughts is have a reflection in my language, and they have. I think that bidirectional or dialectical relationship with each other. And the second one question?
Whether all human languages share a common origin?
It is a controversial question. Some people say that yes, for example, Indo-European languages are the common origin of, for example, Indo-European languages. For example, from English, French, Persian have a common origin. But from evolutionary point of view, we can say yes to this question. But there are some different point of view. I tell here just about my opinion.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you,
Welcome.
Amir. Dr. Shafi, would you like to add some?
Okay, thank you so much. I'm in agreement with Dr. Ardebili about the relationship between language and actually, I want to say cognition, not just thought, because thinking is is one of our cognitive process actually, and I think it depends which approach we look at from which approaches actually. For example, if we want to look at the relationship between language and cognition from the cognitive linguistics second generation, actually, we can say that it is the weakest version of Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. It believes that our language actually affects the process of our cognition. For example, if we have some words in our language, okay, the process of that concept is easier to us in comparison to the language that doesn't have this word in their language, actually. I mean that the language make the process of cognition easy for us. But if we want to look at them in depth, actually, we can say that we wouldn't have consciousness if we don't have language in a broad sense. If I want to talk about it in a broad sense, and about the previous question about social engineering, I think social engineering is all about the psychology of persuasion. Um, I think the aim is to gain the trust of targets. I mean, and I don't know it can affect our personal information or not. But I think it's all about persuasion, and it's a kind of psychological concept.
Thank you, Dr. Shafiei. Is there any question? Thank you. Thank you. Let me say a few words at the end. As both lecturers said, it seems that cognitive sciences have challenged some philosophical, religious, and scientific paradigms about anthropology. In addition, it has developed our understanding of how culture is formed and developed. As our lecturer said, I think cognitive science can make great contributions in promoting good public culture to developing societies. Of course, if cognitive science falls into the hands of criminal individuals or organizations, it can lead to the promotion of evil in the world. Overall, I think we should be positive and focus on the opportunities that cognitive sciences create in the field of culture. Time is up. Thank you all again. Hope to see you in next meeting. We will upload two speeches in YouTube, the YouTube channel. Have a nice day. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
خیلی
Thank you.
ممنونم. خیلی ممنونم از خانم دکتر اردبیلی، خانم دکتر شفیعی و همه حضار، به ویژه اونایی که دانشجویان و محققان ایرانی هستند در اتریش. خیلی متشکرم. خدا نگهدار همتون.